we'll kick things off. Just want to thank you again for joining us. I'm joined by Kelly O'Neill today, and the discussion that we're going to have together over a number of questions is really centered around Hyperbots AI native approach. So just as a lead in, before the questioning, I think there's a lot of tools out in the space today, softwares that claim an AI native landscape. What does that really mean? What's the approach around it? Is it truly AI native, or is it something where there's been a framework already built, that we're adding AI on top of, where, in Hyperbots landscape, being strictly an AI solution hitting the marketplace when it has? We'll discuss a number of those things today. But Kelly, I'll kick us off here with kind of our first question. Hyperbots calls itself AI native rather than AI enhanced. What is the difference, would you say, in architecture?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brad. When we talk about what AI native means, it means in this instance that the models come first. So Hyperbots started out by building a mixture of experts models. And so an MOE model in the sense of architecture. And those can then read an invoice, reason over tax, recommend codes, and so forth. And only after those models hit high accuracy did the engineers then add on the additional items such as screens, APIs, and sort of the workflow glue and hook it all together. So traditional vendors probably mostly bolt on top of the rules that they wrote a decade ago with their AI.
Right.
And so then the automation depth, it just doesn't match the true design of design first AI.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Could you give a concrete example of that AI first design philosophy in action?
Yeah, absolutely. In the invoice processing copilot, the extraction model hit 99% accuracy before the UI was coded at all. And so once that extraction was rock solid, the developers layered on the approval routing and audit trails and analytics. And so in that sequence, that would be its opposite of what legacy software capturing data first and trying to add the AI in with like sort of the errors way. And in this model, it basically is looking for sort of a set of criteria of percentage that it hits before it's going to dial it in.
Oh, that's huge. 99% is being that close to 100 is fantastic. And of course, with AI, you come to expect that, but it's not always the case. So, how does Hyperbots create a purpose-built AI for key finance tasks?
Each of the modules has its own specialist models. And then, so like as an example, for GL recommendation, that model trained on a chart of account, corpora powers coding. That is like a tax lookup model embedded in jurisdiction rules. An identity validation model handles W-9s, and they're built for finance, so they're not generic text or image AI.
Now, what would you say, like what level of productivity gain did you see versus, with Hyperbots versus previous tools?
Yeah, in invoice straight through processing, that climbed to 82%, and GL coding accuracy to 99%. Payment prep time dropped 70%. And overall, we estimate that about 80 plus percent in productivity lift is gained compared with 25% that we achieved when we patched OCR into our old AP system. So this is significant, 65% delta.
Yeah, no, that is huge. And, with my experience, joining Hyperbots when I did, I think that was one of the biggest things I noticed is really the jump from OCR. Everything that I knew before was OCR, that was automation, right? But now what AI is doing, that you do realize the significant difference in that. So thanks for sharing. Competitors show dashboards with AI too. Um, where do they fall short?
Well, they typically would add their LLM or for chat or a small model, or use GPT's APIs that are trained for finance and accounting deep enough. And then hence that backbone is still ruling the human data entry, whereas Hyperbots does deep agentic AI throughout. And that means that MOE for extraction that we talked about earlier has reasoning agents for tax predictive engines and for payment timing. And then as a result, there's just near zero human touches in that effort.
Great. And you mentioned agentic in there. I think that's becoming so much of a buzzword these days. Can you explain deep agentic AI in finance terms?
Absolutely. So think of it like it's a colony of specialized agents. One is extracting data, another is validating math, a third is reasoning over policy, and they all talk to each other. As an example, when a vendor copilot finishes a W-9 check, the invoice copilot can then trust the supplier record and post automatically.
That's awesome. Now, how does the AI native stack support continuous innovation?
Yeah, because the modules are modular, Hyperbot swaps in a better extraction expert every 6 weeks without rewriting the app. And so we've already received 3 accuracy upgrades since our first go live with no downtime or no service fees.
That's great. Continuous. So it's like getting an update, but maybe more frequently than I get on my computer, but with agents. That's great. Is there a difference in deployment effort, would you say, between AI native and bolt-on AI, or kind of the AI that you're seeing on top of maybe legacy systems?
Yes, absolutely. So we didn't label data or host training pipelines. We pre-trained models delivered with day one accuracy. And bolt-on vendors requested maybe like 10,000 historical invoices to train and then quoted a 3-month timeline. So there's a major gap there of difference in the time frame that it would take and the effort.
Makes sense. Does the AI native model, would you say, change how you audit and govern finance data?
Yes, every prediction carries a confidence score and a why explanation, and auditors can see the reasoning chain. Patch on AI often acts like a black box with no traceability and lacks that reasoning.
Awesome. Can you cite a task where non-native AI cannot automate deeply enough?
Sure, where there's GL coding of mixed purpose lines, generic AI tags by keyword, and our model is doing reasons over vendor history, contract context, cost center, and then it's going to do a split of a $100,000 invoice across 5 accounts automatically, whereas
Oh,
legacy tools would punt that to AP clerks and it would be a lot of human effort.
yeah. Yeah, still staying manual in nature. So, how do co-pilots keep learning without risking bad habits? I think hallucinations comes up a lot when talking about AI, but how would you say that co-pilots keep learning without kind of risking those habits specifically?
Yeah. So self learning is gated, and the system needs multiple consistent human confirmations before it's going to promote a change. So there is interaction of that validation point, and then the outliers are quarantined for the review. So it never institutionalizes a one off error. So there's a verification and validation point.
So, you know, speaking generally, but some finance leaders, I would say, worry that AI native means more rigid. Like, how configurable is the platform?
It's very configurable. We tune tolerances, approval tiers, custom fields, all in no code and without touching core models. So the AI native doesn't mean it's hardwired. It means that the smarts are baked in while the configs stay flexible, and it's highly friendly to being able to configure it in that way.
Right. What about long-term value? Like, will these models age out?
Well, Because Hyperbots pushes incremental model upgrades, the capabilities keep compounding. So as our business grows, the copilots are adapting. And as an example, last month they absorbed a new ESG expense category just overnight. So I think the
Oh,
long-term value is going to stick.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Well, and certainly hope it does, and it continues to compound. I think when talking about, you know, with a potential competitive gap, summarize what the competitive gap is and maybe one metric.
Um, if we pick straight through rates, Hyperbots 80% plus versus the best competitor we tested at 35%. And that delta is the AI native dividend. So it's
That's
again, it's major.
that's huge. Yeah, absolutely. Now, and really appreciate kind of running through this. I had really just kind of one more question, I guess, as a final thought. Like, why do you think CFOs should bet on more of an AI native approach now?
Well, finance is moving from automation of clicks to automation of thinking. And AI native platforms like Hyperbots are already there, delivering really at this point 5 times the efficiency of patched on AI.
Mm,
And waiting means leaving money on the table.
that's true, and money talks. So that's key. And I think it was really great kind of running through these questions, and thank you so much for your correspondence throughout. I think it was helpful to understand kind of firsthand what the difference is between like AI native, because it's almost everywhere now. Everyone wants to put that down, but that there's stark differences between something that's truly AI native and something that's again kind of adding AI on top of something that's already built. So really appreciate it, Kelly. Thanks again as usual, and looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Bradley.
All righty. Bye, Kelly.